Welcome to Shopping Seriously, where three geeks take a look at stuff that they've been buying for the week. I'm quite keen to move away from just tech stuff because this is not about tech stuff. We don't want to compete with the BBC Click because that just drives me mad. This is about tech brains buying stuff. So this is about people who do research. This is about people who are pretty much on the spectrum, wouldn't you agree, Alice? And actually deeply go into what they're doing. And we've got Alice Taylor here, who's standing in for Nathan Allen, who's one of our engineers. Alice, do you think you're qualified to talk about geeky obsessive behaviour?
I mean, I don't think anyone could live up to the Nathan energy, that he I'd say actually Nathan kind of brings a bit of a normalness that I would say the rest of us are perhaps.
What, 2 weeks
lacking.
Research into buying things? Alice, do you research much? Do you buy, or do you just press click? I'm not talking about just pizzas here.
I'm more of a press click kind of buyer.
Right, it's nice to have the alternative.
Impulsive shopper, but I think it's quite controversial that today's product wasn't in a box. It's not going to be unboxed.
Yeah. Well, I was looking back, Kira, because it was my turn, and I was looking at what I've been buying this week, and it's just a load of old crap, really. The nearest I got to unboxing was a coffee pot, and there is rationale behind it. I did obsess about it. In fact, I bought it quite instinctively. It was a metal double-lined coffee pot which had for exactly 800 millilitres of liquid, and I'd already decided all of that, and I'd already done all of that. So if anyone wants to know about a coffee pot and have a coffee pot unboxing by somebody who's obsessed about it,
not 750, not 850, 800 millilitres.
Correct, which is the optimum amount for two of us to have a decent cup of coffee in the morning, and not too much and not too little. Anyway, here we are. But actually, what I spent most of my money on this week, with the exception of food and grocery, why did I buy it and not rent it, are key questions. But I'm going to say the name of the movie, which is actually The Conclave, which stars Ralph Fiennes as a lineup of cardinals at the time of a pope's death, having to get together in a kind of purdah and choose the next pope. But we actually bought this before the BAFTAs, the day before we knew it was coming out. And I'm quite interested in that whole process that went into that. I think you're watching a bit of a clip of it now. I don't think we've got any sound for it, but it's essentially a papal election drama involving political intrigue and secrets and intense power struggles. Alice, what can you imagine the challenges are when you're thinking about watching a movie for the night?
Well, so it was interesting when you said about shopping. I was thinking of buying physical stuff, but actually I do take a lot of time. I would say much of my life is spent watching TV shows or choosing what TV shows to watch, and it is a very hard process because there is so much. Don't need to explain this to anyone, but I've actually found that I now get my film recommendations from TikTok, from clips that come up, because it's like watching a trailer, but it's kind of, you actually see the actual show rather than just trailers are kind of crafted to sell the film to you, whereas actual clips, I think you're actually previewing what you're actually going to be watching. So I think it's a really big decision-making process.
And Kieran, it's a bit like an overwhelming bookstore, isn't it? I recall Pink Floyd's something like 16 channels of shit on the TV to choose from. Isn't it now 150 channels of shit on the TV to choose from?
Yes, it is.
It's like 4 billion.
Have a hack for everybody to make sense of this madness, because I kid you not, I will often look for something to watch of an evening, and by the time I've got around to deciding, it's already like, by the time I finish this, I'm going to be knackered. So sometimes I'll abandon watching something because I spent so long deciding. So here's what you do, right? Is you look up, and there's endless articles on this. What's the best thing on, insert your streaming service, Netflix at the moment, or Disney Plus, or whatever it is. And then go through, when you've got a minute, you can sort of go through and read about it all and think, well, that one looks good, that one looks good, and then put it on your wish list. So then choose different ones. So then when you go and say, I'll watch something, you've already done the research. You've already pretty confident you're going to like it. You've already got a bunch of genres, and then you just say, go. And then you don't have all this paralysis decision making. That's the solution.
So, what intrigued me about this is, as a former actor myself, and there'll probably be some picture of a sports car with sunglasses coming up because I used to be in the arts myself, and this is quite artistic, but it's not the same.
Weren't you in this movie? I thought you were in this
movie. I was not in this movie,
Not
Kieran,
this one.
but I've been in movies in the past. But anyway, this particular one, and the guys are now teasing me with a picture of me in front of a sports car from 100 years ago.
Have you not found the picture of him in a film, guys?
Yeah. Anyway, forget
Picture.
this. What really matters to me is, and there's this marketing paradigm when you're buying things called selective scrutiny, because you've painted the picture, Alice. We're overwhelmed with choice. So we actually need selective scrutiny because we haven't got time to scrutinize everything. So we go to our trust centers. Part of my selection process is a recommendation from a friend or my partner, Emily, who may say, actually, I know you're going to like this. Oh, okay, let's have a look at this. Other things may be like, I kind of like Mark Kermode and his review of things for the British Film Institute. I also like things like BFI and Mubi, who tend to focus on the slightly offbeat movies, because I like movies that are just not the same old crap. Alice, what's your selective scrutiny process? Who do you trust? What lists do you trust?
It's really interesting, this entire thing of bringing a film onto this, because I'm trying to think, actually, to convince me to pay money to watch a film or a TV show, that is a big ask, because it's like, well, why should I pay for something when I've got all of Netflix, I've got all of, all these different streaming platforms there. And you're right about, I like this idea of your trust centres, your places. And I think actually, because research shows, and I think a lot of us feel that actually word of mouth recommendations by people whose, views and opinions are quite similar to yours, you value a lot more than like the best review ever from a trusted news article or even watching stuff on social media, because someone who personally, I guess they're not trying to sell you, they're not actually trying to physically sell you something, even though they might be trying to convince you to watch the film, but they genuinely, they know your tastes and they kind of know you. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I will actually do a little bit of a review of this, because I know that we're more interested in the geeky selection processes, but I did find it a really intriguing film. And the first thing is that I think Ralph Fiennes is a superb actor, and he actually plays this cardinal who is the kind of manager, is the overseer of the conclave while they get locked in a room. We all know the process with the election of the Pope, and that there's got to be white smoke not black smoke when they decide all of this. But he's actually the guy that's got to get all of these people together in one building and keep them locked in there until they decide. And it's basically the tussle that he has, because they mustn't hear influence from outside. They mustn't hear gossip about other people, so that they get the right, I was going to say right man, but actually this film, with a spoiler alert, there's a very, very intriguing twist at the end about the person that they actually choose over and above the one that they... There's a lot of corruption.
Is it AI?
I'm gonna,
is it an alien?
It's a very modern theme about male and females and that whole gender sort of topic at the moment. But let's not give
what
away
I thought was interesting was, they kept labouring like, we are locked in. We cannot have gossip or outside information. And yet all the twists were built around gossip and outside information.
Exactly. And that's the film to me, is that the character he plays is selecting what to listen to and what not to listen to. Yeah. And in effect, the thing that he was listening to was election corruption. He felt that any information about the process being corrupted, and one of the cardinals was like clearly in bad faith, trying to lobby and pay people to get him elected. And he was very interested in that information, but he was actually not interested in information that was gossip about the person that they finally elected. And the irony is that they probably wouldn't have elected that Pope if he had actually heard that information. So a fascinating film. I always think that all films and good successful films, pretty much all of them are very well acted and very well directed, and you saw that rapport and you saw that command.
The acting was great.
And ownership. And I think a shout out for Stanley Tucci as well, who I felt had almost given up acting. And was superb because he just didn't care. He just did the part right. But also the wonderful Isabella Rossellini, who played one of the Mother Superiors. And of course, as you imagine in that Margaret Atwood kind of dystopian world, all the women have to, the very, very high status nuns are basically washing the dishes for all the important men during this process. And it was,
you're going to love the Catholic Church, haven't you?
Oh,
they've got their finger on the pulse.
Goodness
Although
me.
Something that I always find really interesting is that we seem to be quite culturally fascinated with this idea of like nuns that are evil, and like, that because we think of them as like, oh, just a sweet little nun, like a nice granny. And like in Margaret Atwood, she basically portrays nuns as like the doers of evil. And so does it have that kind of take, or is it quite sympathetic towards
I think
nuns
they
and women?
they support the right information about. They don't make any gender kind of issues, but they support the right information being published, and it's literally published, and the wrong information being quite rightly held back because it's nothing to do with the selection of an excellent candidate. The last point I want to say, and this is turning into quite a long shopping seriously, because actually we give ourselves 5 minutes for this and we've almost doubled it, is that it has quite an irony, because I hear that Ralph Fiennes is not lobbying the Oscars to, and that, if you're going to win they've won in the BAFTAs, but if you're going to win in the Oscars, you've got to lobby everyone and give them bungs and attend things, and apparently they're not doing that, and that's quite a good principle, I think. He's denying himself an Oscar, but the whole film is about people who are doing the right thing. So I've just seen Emily in the background; she's hobbled through. So
can I just say on the film selection, I was going to say one of the main deciding points, trust factors that I have is IMDb. And I'd say anything over a 7 that I want to watch, I will. Anything over 7.5, I'll watch, even if I don't think I'm going to like it, and I always do. So I just had a quick look on IMDb about Conclave. 7.4, absolute sweet spot. That's why I enjoyed it.
Oh, right. So you go for not so popular, but not terrible.
Anything above 7.5 on IMDb is worth watching. That's just a fact.
Nice. Okay, I sure. Well, thank you for the tip, Kieran. Thank you very much, both of you, for a fascinating shopping seriously. Next week it'll probably be Alice without Alice. Alice can choose what she'd do.
And bring Nathan back. You get a bit more of the banter and less of the like. Yes, I think this philosophical point about the Catholic Church and like what that means for women.
Thank you very much. That was the shopping seriously. Oh, you are sweet. You are really sweet. I think.